Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau User Group meeting number 16. This tug's a little bit different because we cater for the presenter rather than the audience. So we're meeting tonight because that's when Erran's available. Tonight means tonight for me, depends on where you are in the world. So tug meetings are organised when presenters are available. We try to stick to one a week, but this week's like a few other weeks where we've got 2 meetings in a week. And all the meetings are recorded. They'll be put up on YouTube as quickly as possible, and you can see them on YouTube or on the podcast. More about that later. We have a lot of TC25 presentations coming up over the next few months, but again, tonight is special because we've got a Visit Sydney presentation, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But if you want to present on the tug, email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. and we'll find a time slot that works for you. So tonight, as I said, a repeat of Visit Sydney with Erran talking about the visual grammar of colour. And I think the website's now working so we can actually use it as a demo, but if not, we've got some slides to accommodate that as well. So I'll hand it over to you, Erran, and you can take it from here.
Cool, thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. So today, we are into the design or art side of Tableau, and which is about color. Now, cool. So first, sorry, forgot to share my screen. Apologies. Great. Cool. So a first question for everyone to think about is, how do you tell people that you use Tableau without telling people that you use Tableau, right? And for me, the first thing, or the most obvious thing that I pick up from people's work for visuals or dashboards would be this combination of orange blue color, which is very, very easy to recognize. It just instantly tells you that it's a Tableau design. But have you ever thought about why this particular combination? So if you just create a bar chart and just randomly assign two colors to two different categories, and this is what the default combination will come up. But have you ever thought about why does Tableau pick these two? We know that all the default settings in Tableau is not random, right? Everything from, for example, the default visuals. If you just the 12 or 16 default chart types, why they pick those? Everything behind it, there is a sort of a research and scientific reason behind each of the selections they pick. Now, does anyone know why this particular combination? So there are 5 major reasons, okay, behind this. First, the blue-orange are sort of sitting in the opposite end of the color wheel, which we'll introduce in a bit. But I'm sure everyone has seen the color wheel at some point, and blue and orange are sit opposite to each other, So, and which means that they're complementary to each other. The second reason is it's colorblind friendly. Okay, you'll be surprised, which we'll later talk about. There are many more people than you think have some degree of color blindness, and blue and orange are more distinguishable under red-green color blindness. So, which means that it's more accessible to the for the bigger percentage of the population. The third reason is it's emotional neutral. Okay, so blue is broadly associated with calm, trust, and neutral, and blue is the most favored color according to research. Orange, well, it's sort of energetic but not overly aggressive. Okay, like red is also energetic, but it's a little bit too aggressive. But orange is much more neutral. So these two will give sort of like, it doesn't give you too aggressive when it comes to convey that message to the audience. The fourth reason is it's good for a divergent data. So if you, this is two categorical data, but if we say we want to present from the dark blue to dark orange, and then sort of in between, diverging in between, these two color will sit well when you're on that diverging on two end of the spectrum. Again, because of they sitting opposite of each other on the color wheel. And the final reason is these two color are friendly to printers. So if we want to print out, we know that printers are very, very picky when it comes to the color. So these two printer friendly. When you print it out, it will look much more similar to what you see on the screen. So as you can see, this looks like a very simple color combination. There's a lot of scientific reason behind. So which tells you that color can go as deep as you want to go. Now, you know, color is not just a decoration, right? So we always thought that it's just, color is just there to make things look pretty. But what I want to say is color is actually part of the grammar of a chart. So when we design visuals, especially us when we designed a Tableau dashboard, trying to tell the story, color is part of the message that they're trying to say, to send to the audience. In addition to the layout, the chart type, the data, color is a very important part of that. And this is what we trying to a key takeaway for today. So it's not an afterthought. It's something that you need to put a lot of thought on as a part of your workflow. So before we go into deeper, so there's some basic of color theory, right? So there are three key components of color. There's hue, there's value, and there's saturation. So hue, it's just color itself. The red, blue, green, orange, it's just, that represents hue. It's just a fancy name for that. Okay, so value would be how light or dark is the color. So is it more sort of pale or more washed out? And saturation is how strong or faded is the color. So for each hue, you can adjust the value and adjust the saturation, will give you a different color. From that, we'll move on to the different type of color palettes. So the first will be the easiest, the categorical data, the categorical palette, which is when you are trying to show, for example, different states, which you will pick a different color for different states. Each states are not related to each other, so we use categorical, fairly easy. The second type, which is the third row, is sequential palette, is where they sit next to each other on the color wheel. Okay, so this will be, usually we want to represent numbers from low to high. And the third type is diverging palettes. Why I will introduce in the last one is because diverging palettes is basically you put two sequential palettes together, but we have a neutral point, right? For in this case, you have the neutral point, which is white, and then on one end you got red, on the other end you got black. So if we're using data, we want to do data visualization, we should fairly familiar with all these different type of color palettes. Diverging, we usually use, for example, temperature will be a very good example. We have 0 degrees, and then you got north or south of that. So that would be a very good case to use divergent palettes. And then there is the color wheel. So, I mean, you'll probably see that in different sort of a style of the color wheel, but essentially they're all the same thing. Okay. And why we want to show this color, because that will give you an idea how you pick color that look sort of create a harmony to each other, right? When you pick a color palette, how do you pick? Why does these 2 or 3 or 10 colors looks good together? You go back to the color wheel to see where they sit. Now, of course, later on we'll show that we got tools and plugins, to websites to help you to create the color palettes, of course. But those are based on, again, just make the picking process easier. But it's good to know what's the underlying principle, which is basically where the color sits on the color wheel. Now, there are different types of sort of color harmony principles. Now, this table is a lot to read, but we can go. This is more easier to see when we look at on the color wheel. First, it's called a monochromatic. Okay, so basically it's just one color, one hue, but you add different shades. Like I say, you adjust the shades, you adjust the tones, you adjust tints. Going back to the 3 key elements of a color, you got hue, you got value, you got saturation. Okay, so monochromatic, basically you adjust the value and you adjust the saturation of one color. And so if you look at the color wheel, this blue, for example, I probably wouldn't be able to see my cursor, but each of this color is from dark yellow to light yellow, from dark red to light. So these are, we'll call it monochromatic. So this is one type of color harmony you are able to pick. The second type, analogous, which means that the color sits next to each other on the color wheel, okay? And they will also look good to each other. Now, if you look at the, going back to the color palette we talked about, sequential, these, for example, these 3 colors that pick up from the pie chart, from the wheel, sorry, they sit next to each other and they will look complementary to each other. And they also, when we talk about the sequential, this is a 3, and you just keep going to, on a circle on the wheel. The next one would be apologies, I'm always going back the wrong direction. Complementary. So if we say 2 colors are complementary on creating the color palettes, that means that the colors are sitting opposite ends on the color wheel. Okay, it should be fairly straightforward, and they will look good with each other. So if we see that, well, when we earlier we talked about the blue and orange combination, you can see that they do sit on opposite ends of each other on the wheel. That's why they will look good together. Split complementary is you have 2 adjacent and then 1 that is the opposite end of the color wheel. Okay, they will also complementary to each other. Triadic, which is a triangle, fairly straightforward. And this is how, if you see, so when we go back to, I think this might be a good time. Okay, once we show all the rectangle, which is another harmony principle, they form a triangle, form a rectangle on the color wheel. And finally, square. Okay, so you see, arts are basically mathematics, right? So just like music, okay, why does certain melody or chord progression will sound good to you? It's art, but if you dig deeper, it's mathematics. And it's the same here. Now, if you get a book about color theory, there's a lot of mathematics go inside here, but you can see that. But this does give you an idea. It should be fairly straightforward. If you next time when you brings up a color wheel in tools like Adobe or Figma, and you'll see that color wheel, you are able to know how to pick colors that look to each other without going to third-party tools to help you. You're able to see why. Okay. And so now, next, we want to talk about psychology of color. Have you noticed the burger chains or the fast food chains are mostly red and yellow, right? Because, like I said, we all know that red and yellow are about energetic, passion. But according to research, apparently, these two combination or will makes people more hungry. They will makes you want to eat more, apparently. So there's a reason. If you go, I think Wendy's is also similar color. What's the? I think Dunkin' Donuts also similar color. So there's also reason. There's a reason behind why these companies choose the specific color for their logo. And each color, like you said, has certain meaning behind it. But here we talk about is all sort of the basic or the most known, obviously, and mostly on the positive side. Okay, for each color, you can pick some negative side of it, and later on we'll show that different color will mean different things in different culture, in different contexts. So that's something that you don't want to consider further. But in generally, when we talk about red, when you see red, we feel passion, well, energy, we feel excited. Okay, yellow with joy, wisdom, optimism. Blue, knowledge, peace, loyalty, and I think in 2006, when Hillary Clinton delivered her conception speech, she was wearing purple, and I think that was there's meaning behind that. Okay, green was associated with money, the greenback. Okay, growth. If the revenue is positive, we show it in green for a reason. Nature for this fairly straightforward. Purple. Oh, sorry. The earlier was blue. Apologies. Blue was associated with knowledge and peace. Luxury, sophistication, and inspiration. Okay. Orange would be creativity, uniqueness, stimulation. Black, sophistication, elegance. Now, if you think about all the luxury brands, the logos are mostly dark, black color. Okay. Gray will be balance, maturity, intelligence. So if you want to add a color, let's say if you want to add a third color to going back to that blue and orange combination, if you want to add a third color, let's say a line chart on top of that, usually I will pick gray because it's sort of like it's more neutral and balanced and doesn't really take away the attention from the other two. So gray is usually a good pick if you find something that's fairly neutral and balanced to each other. So now all these logos with different color, they are trying to tell you something. Okay. If you pay attention, you will see that most electronic retail brands will have similar color. All the soft drink brands will have similar color. Or the banks, the financial institutions will have similar color. And they all trying to convey a message in trying to sell something, okay? Because people will have the perception, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brand, okay? So, and your brand will sort of like, all these companies are trying to tell you something with, when you see their logo, you want to feel something about them. You have a certain perception, okay? Now, if you, like, you wouldn't want, for example, you wouldn't want to see your insurance company or your hedge funds logo to be red, okay? It doesn't really give you a good feeling, right? And Nintendo, for example, you probably wouldn't be the best idea for Nintendo to be black, okay? You want to be red, which associate with passion, excitement, okay? Cultural variation is another very important thing to consider, but obviously it's again, it depends on who you're trying to show your visualization, you show your artwork, and then you do some research based on your audience. But cultural variation is very important thing to consider because they could be very different from each other. For example, in Asia, red in stock market, if you go to Asia, you see when stock market is in red, usually means up. Okay, blue usually is down, where in the West is the opposite. Okay, and white in Asia, particularly in China, usually means funeral. Okay, and red means happy, so you use red in weddings, traditional weddings. It's going to be red color, where white in the West would not be associated with funeral, right? So these are all, and again, in Africa, different colors, in South America, there's a lot of, again, it's impossible for us to sort of show that fits every single culture, but it's important to know, if you have a work that is showing to this particular audience that let's say you want to show your visual is targeting specific for Japanese audience, then it's good to have some research of what the different color means in Japan. And then accessibility. So this is probably more important than you think, because apparently 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women have some degree of color blindness. Okay, we'll call it color vision deficiency. So which means that there is a big chunk of people, 1 in 12 men will not see the dashboard or the visuals that you see. Okay, so it's very important when you choose the color. Again, it's impossible to design something that is suitable for everybody, but it's something that you need to consider. For example, if you see, that your audience is, because the color blindness will change based not just gender but also age. So if you know your audience are more the average age of your audience are higher, then you probably need to think about sort of what color to pick. Then again, you can use some third-party tools or use AI to help you to find a good color combination, but it's something that is definitely something to consider. It's not something trivial. And finally, avoid some color crimes, because when color is important, but it's also it's easy to do it wrong and will mess up with your visuals. Okay, so first is too many colors, and this is quite a common mistakes that people see, especially if you have say a line chart with 10 different categories, and with 10 different colors. I think it's fairly straightforward to see that it's very difficult for people to read and very difficult for people to pick up, to distinguish between these 10 different categories. And a good practice, so here on the table, you see it's limited to 6 to 10 distinct colors. Now, I think the best practices for data visualization is below 6. Okay, if you need more than 6 colors in general, that means that you need to group some of them together, or you need to rethink your data. Okay, because it's adding more confusion than clarity. The second is poor contrast. And this is another very common mistake. Actually, Apple is in the news last week because the iOS 26, when they're adding this glass, well, liquid glass design, okay? And because of the contrast issue, it makes some of the messages very, very difficult to read. Okay, especially if you have a background. I downloaded the beta version, and if your sort of your background wallpaper is something light color, and it's almost impossible for me to read a message, to read notification when I pull down the notification center. Okay, so that's another example of the contrast problem here. Number 3 would be color as only means of meaning. Okay, and like I said, color should be a part of your thinking, and it's part of the equation to make your work. If you try to tell a story or convey a message to the audience, color should be part of the things that you think about, and not everything. On top of that, there is your layouts, your icons, your choose of chart type, etc. And so color is just one of the things that in the mix to make your work nice. Number 4 is inconsistent color use. It should be fairly straightforward. If you use blue to represent cells, then you should keep it consistent across your dashboard or across your project. And now lastly is culture. Like I said, it could mean something completely different to what you know for what does color mean. So know your audience is very important when it comes to consider the cultural elements of color. And once you go through all that, make sure that you pick the right color palettes and pick the color that looks nice next to each other, which is complementary to each other based on all these different principles, one or a few, and avoid all the mistakes that you could make, and then you could be creative. Now, obviously, you have those default color palettes in Tableau that I gave you, but you could, get boring fairly quickly if you do more of the design. Now, how I usually find some inspiration is, for me, one way I really like a Japanese design. So I will, and Japan is they're very they have a unique sort of use of color. Some of the very well-known, very popular color books are coming from Japan, and they took a lot of inspiration from nature. So if you next time you could just Google Japanese color palettes, you will find their names as well. They will name the color based on things that in the nature, and the color selections that are very different from what you see in the Western design. So if you want to come up with some color combination that's slightly different than your peers or you see online, that will be a very good way to go. And the second inspiration, like I said earlier, Cooler is a tool that I use extensively. You are able to see sort of like color palettes that by people. I think there's thousands of different color palettes, and you can just see some trending ones, some most popular ones, and you can create your own. And then, just try to type as long as you sort of avoid those mistakes. It's good to do some creative and will really make your work much more colorful. And that's not just in terms of the different colors, but also you'll see make it different, because if you go on your company sort of Tableau server, all you can see are same color. It's very much the black, the blue, the orange, and then the red and blue, and they all look the same. But if you just tweaks the color combination a little bit, you'll find that you'll find all the designs and the visuals a lot more interesting. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much. I'm not sure if Cooler is working on my end. Okay, Chris, I think it's still on. It's still white.
Oh, okay.
Screen on my end.
Did you want me to demo it from here and you can just talk through?
Yeah, if you.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. Cool. Okay, so where do we begin? So if you the most basic and easiest, you just press the space bar. You keep pressing, and it will keep come up with the different color palettes. Okay, so usually how I go is that I will choose a color. For example, like I want my design today to be based on the pink one, for example. So let's lock that pink one. There's a little lock you can do. Yep. And then if you keep hitting the space bar, it will keep that pink unchanged, and then find the colors that look complementary to the pink one. And obviously, it's not limited to 5. You can add 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you want. And then if you go on top of the, I think it says 3 dots, or the
up here?
the variations. Yeah, 3 dots. Generate method.
Yeah.
Right. So
cool.
that will allows you to choose different harmony type of the color that we went through each of them earlier, which is complementary, split complementary, rectangle, square, basically that how these colors sit on the color wheel will make them look good with each other. So you can choose one of the type, and then hit the space bar, and then it will. Obviously, yeah, it's a paid feature. It's not overly expensive. I think it's about $7 a month. I think it depends on you see how much you use, and is that for me, if you use color extensive, you design extensively, what is that? It's not a yeah, you'll see how if that, but it works for you. But it's something that is available. Another thing is feature I use a lot is upload a photo. So how I usually go is I go to Pinterest, for example, and find a infographic or a design that I really like, and I really like the colors they use in that. I'll download that as a picture, and then I will come Cooler, and you can upload that picture to it, and then it will automatically pick up all the colors they use in that particular picture. Okay, I think not just Cooler has that. I think Canva has that feature as well. Yeah, there's certainly other third-party tools, but Cooler just brings all these little tools for color all together in one. But this is not the only place you can find that. And then once you find your color palettes that you like, you can save that to your own library, and then for future use, right? As in, how do you export that to Tableau? There's a lot of export selections, but there is no directly export to Tableau. I heard that there is a plugin that allows you to directly go from Cooler to Tableau. I haven't found that myself, but I did some research and I wasn't able to find it. But it's not too hard to manually sort of add the color palettes and create your own. There are plenty of tutorials online to fairly easy to do that. Just add into the preference.tip file. But you know, Cooler is a tool that I find it very user friendly in terms of how it operates, and to find some inspiration. If you go, I think there is a explore section of the tool, and you will see what is trending recently in the last 30 days, in the last month. And you'll find some little sort of color combos that looks fairly new that we've never seen before, and try that to your design, and you will have some really nice surprise. And this is where I come in sometimes, so just make sure that the colors that I pick myself in Tableau without using the tools, if I want some validation that if this color actually looks good with the color, Cooler is one of the tools I will come to make to check. And obviously with Gen AI, it makes this a lot easier as well. I will go to take a screenshot of my color select or just my design in general and give it to ChatGPT and ask, does my color palette looks good? If any color that should not be there, can you suggest any color that complements with this color? And you will get some very good answers from ChatGPT as well. So, in addition to Cooler, obviously this is not the only tools. I think there's a couple of Tableau workbooks on the Tableau Public, which has a lot of nice color palettes that is just available for you to download. You could even download the entire preference.tip file and add it to your Tableau folder. So, which makes the import fairly easy as well. Yeah, thank you. I think that is it for today. Any questions for anybody?
While people are thinking about questions, I don't mean to hijack it, but I sort of need to. When you said there's no quick way to convert Coolors to Tableau,
yep.
That's why I just quickly closed my screen. Back in May of last year, I wrote this little tool which was helping me at the time.
I think you are the one who, yes, because I was told during the event, during the visit, that there's someone created a tool, but I just couldn't find it.
So Alex did one, but I forget when Alex did his. I think it was like a few months later. But mine was take this link. So again, in Coolors, do whatever you want. I want that palette, and just copy that, and then put it in my tool like this, because I haven't used this for almost a year, and name it something, and then I can't even remember what happens. And then it says, oh, there you go, because I've named it test, go into your preferences TPS file and paste that in. And that was the way of getting this palette into Tableau in a few steps.
Nice.
So as I said, edit your preferences file, paste your definition there, restart Tableau desktop, and it's done for you. Purely because I was in the same position that you just said, is just like, I've got this nice palette here, whether you like that or not, or you just, the same thing, just keep on pressing spacebar until you find something that you like. And how do you convert all this into Tableau easily? Was just pasted into the tool and it's done. Alex has got a similar tool that does a similar type job. It's just, how do you...
That's perfect, yep.
Rather than trying to battle it yourself, is how do you do that?
Yep.
But I'll go back to my presentation or your presentation. And I think, as you said, any questions from anyone else? There's something in the chat. So Andy, you could unmute and say this anyway, but there's a GPT that also allows you to design a palette and also generate the code for your TPS file. Yeah, it's just getting easier and easier these days to say, I like those colors, I need them in Tableau.
Again, sorry, Erran, for hijacking your talk. Absolutely, but this was great because you could kind of talk about the emotions you want to display and all that kind of stuff, and it just generates your palette for you, and again can spit out the TPS code to make it nice and easy for
yeah, nice.
those switches. It was a great tool.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT a lot for validations of my color choice, and I find it really good because it gives you not just the color balance, but explanation and some additional tips and something that tools like Cooler couldn't give you. Cooler can just give you the color, but ChatGPT were able to tell you a lot more.
Yep, because it's the logic. Do you mean that's the logic behind it, like you were talking about before?
Yeah. Yep. And so why this particular color and some alternative. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Any other questions from anyone else?
I just wanted to add one little thing. Sometimes companies require you to use their color guidelines, and they will have a color guideline, and that's been developed based on the brand. And sometimes it's not easy to, if you want to convey certain things like you just mentioned, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I think for my work, we're fairly flexible. So we have a sort of design, sort of design principle, mostly surrounding our logos. How do we? Yeah, but all the we can't use black background, for example. So my presentation slides wouldn't fly. But apart from that, in terms of the colors you use in the visuals, there's not too much restriction. But of course, if it's a company policy, then there's not too much we can do. But yeah, but definitely something. If we're designing for our own portfolio, then there's a lot of different things we can try.
Yeah. But that was fantastic. I learned a lot.
Awesome. So the next slide should be Erran's contact details. So Tableau Public, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, etc.
Thank
and
you.
Obviously the next section is the Fast Five. So these is 5 quick questions, quick answers. No thought involved in the answer. It's just a fun little question. It's supposed to be a fun little question, but obviously Tableau related. So hopefully it jives with you, and if not, just feel free to pass if you want to. So the first question is: if you could add a magic button to Tableau, what would it do?
Create a thank you chart.
Oh, very cool. And what's your go-to move when stakeholders ask for just a tiny change?
Color.
Yep. And when someone asks for a pie chart, how do you cope?
I will create a pie chart and show him how messy it looks, and then also create a different chart type as an alternative to see how much better it will look.
Yep. Yeah. Very good. And what's your most creative way of saying the data is messy?
The information is needs to be untangled.
Very cool. And what's your dashboard building green flag, and what's your red flag?
Green flag.
That's okay. You can pass if you want to.
Okay, I'll pass that.
Yeah.
I couldn't, but I'm do curious to hear the answers from the audience.
Oh, and that's the trick. There's no right answers or wrong answers, right? It's just what are your feelings on
Yeah.
this. So that's cool. We can chat about that as well. So the next tug is, we've got almost a whole week to this one, is Marat asking about prep smarter, not harder, Tableau agent for prep flows. So Tableau agent in Tableau prep and how that helps with your workflows. Again, because of where he is in the world, which is Texas, early if you're in Australia, really early if you're in Europe, and good times if you're in the US, obviously. There's a QR code there for registration, or just go to the user group website and register. And again, the same as this, if you don't make the session, the recording's on YouTube anyway fairly quickly. All tugs, or all online tugs, a lot of them process their recordings through YouTube, so it's all available on YouTube at Team DataFam, and you can go into the different playlists and see just those tugs if you want to. And all those tugs are also on the Spotify podcast and the Apple podcast, so you can listen to them when you're not near a computer and not near a screen. And a lot like this session tonight. There's a lot to see in the session, but there's a lot you can listen to as well and get a lot of that content out as you need to. For any questions and even to present on this tug, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. So thank you, Erran, for your presentation. That was awesome. I'm sorry I missed it at Visit, but I thought it was so good. I heard that it was so good
Thanks,
that we had to record it here as well.
Thank you.
And everyone's a moderator, so you can just unmute and talk now as well if you want to.
Yeah, thank you, Erran. That was fantastic. That was really good.
Thank you.
And very much realizing now how many dashboards exist that are mostly blue colored or like light gray blue colored. And it's like, okay, well, if it's based upon knowledge, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because that is a very common color with dashboards. And so, yeah, no, that was really good.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't say they're the most pretty combo.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But apparently, yeah, there's a reason behind they choose that.
Yeah, reasons for it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot to color when you get in there. When it's, I don't know if you've seen Andy Kriebel's, there's a line graph that's got 1,000 lines on it, and they're all the one color except for the one that you want to see, and that gets highlighted in a stronger color. So you're not lost in color trying to see something. Like everything is gray except for the one thing that they're trying to show through as the message. And usually that's tied to a parameter, so you can actually change what you're looking at. What is the focus of the line graph? And then just have all the noise in the background, because that's important, but it shouldn't take away from the message that you're trying to show.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, no, a lot to take away from that. That was really good. My brain is buzzing.
And I think, did Sarah have this tip in the tip battle as well, which was the transparent color that you can do in Tableau? Was that in the tip battle or somewhere else? So
it was either in her session or it was in the tip battle. Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah.
So all the colors, and this is sort of, again, a trick from years ago, is all the colors in Tableau is RGB. So 2 letters for R, 2 letters for G, 2 letters for B. But then if you create it in the TPS file, there's another 2 letters which control the transparency. So you can set that to 0, 0, and it's really, it doesn't matter what color you have, because the 7th and 8th digit set to 0 make it fully transparent. And then that can be a lot of little tricks in Tableau for different things as well, when you've actually got a color that you can't see that does different things in Tableau. Yeah, I'm sure that was in the tips battle, but we've got to go back and see it as well.
I think that was in the notes as well at the end.
Yep.
The 2-hour brief thing that I got to experience. I do remember writing that one down.
Yep. That's cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that.
Yep. Awesome. That's what I was going to say. If there's no more questions or anything, that's the end of the meeting for tonight.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Erran.
Awesome.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot.
Thanks,
Talk to you soon.
Chris.
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye,
Erran.
Andy. Bye, everyone.